Hello, everyone, and welcome to the SINC Mid-Market IT and Security Leaders Forum. My name is Jason Senamore. I am the Chief Product Officer here at SINC USA, and I will be acting as your Master of Ceremonies for the duration of the forum throughout this week. We're absolutely delighted to be welcoming a really fantastic audience of IT and security leaders from across the country. Obviously, we wish that we could be greeting you all and hosting this event in person, but the wait for being able to physically shake hands with everyone goes on. But not to worry, we have put together 4 days of great content with the sessions designed to really bring audience and speaker as close together as possible. Before I go ahead and introduce and hand things over to our keynote speaker, I'd actually just like to run through a few things to help enhance your experience throughout the course of this week. First and foremost, accessing the sessions. So thank you to all of you who took the time to review the agenda and save your seat for the sessions of most interest to you. For those who were unable to, don't worry, as there are many ways you can join the sessions taking place. Firstly, you should have all hopefully received a calendar invitation for each day of the forum. Within each individual invitation are the links to join each sessions at their respective times during that day. We will also be sending out session reminder emails 10 minutes prior to the start of each session. This will also include the link to join. And finally, more importantly, you can seamlessly join each session via the forum application. Simply navigate through the agenda, click the link or button to join that session, and you will be taken directly into that room. All sessions are open to everyone, aside from the roundtables, which have limited seating. So if you've not already done so, I do encourage you to save your seat for those sessions. As I said, seating and participation will be limited. The forum application, as I mentioned, you should have all hopefully received an email with details on how to access that forum application. And this is really your guide throughout the course of this forum. It contains details of the agenda, the session leaders, your fellow attendees, sponsors, and much more. You are also able to effectively network through this forum application by seeing who your attendees are, your fellow attendees, and instantly messaging them whenever you see fit. You can also leave session feedback, which I would like to reiterate is extremely important. So please do so as and when you can. That session feedback helps us as event organizers and obviously our session leaders to hone their presentations for future gatherings of a similar nature. We encourage everyone to have the app open in your browser as opposed to on your phones. This way, your tab can remain open while you're effectively at the forum, making it easier for you to join the sessions from your desktop and interact with your peers in real time. If anyone experiences any difficulty accessing that app, please contact us as soon as possible at events@sincusa.com. Again, that is events, plural, @sincusa.com, and our staff will be on hand to help. We have some networking sessions taking place this week. Today, at the end of the day, we'll be hosting Tech Trivia. And on Wednesday, there is a virtual escape room experience. Spaces for those 2 sessions are also very limited. So again, please sign up in advance to secure your spot and make sure you have the ability to engage in some very valuable networking. And as always, we have some amazing prizes to give away at the close of the forum. And it's very simple on how to enter and win. First and foremost, rule number 1, you must attend at least 1 session per day. That will get your name entered into the hat. Following that, your name will be entered every single time you attend an additional session. So the more you attend, the more times your name is entered. You will also receive entries by submitting your session feedback through the forum application. And once again, this is extremely valuable to us, so please do so because it's only going to enhance your experience and your ability to win some amazing prizes. At the end of the week, we will draw these names at random and make announcements via email. For details on what prizes are available, please check out the forum application. As I said, there are some pretty cool ones up for grabs. So that is enough from me. Before I jump into everything, I just want to say a massive thank you from everyone here at SINC for taking the time to register and participate in this forum, and we truly hope you have an amazing event. So now I am delighted to hand over to our keynote speaker, Mr. Ken Piddington, the CIO at US Silica company, who is going to be giving us a very candid walk through his first 12 months as a mid-market CIO, pandemic included. We have reserved a good amount of time at the end for this for open Q&A. So should you have any questions you would like to field to Ken, please do utilize the Q&A feature and we will be able to address all of your questions at the end. So without further ado, Ken, if you can turn on your camera. Now I can hand over to you. And there we go.
Jason? All right. Let's go. All right. Well, thank you and welcome everybody. I'm glad to be here and excited to get to present my first year as a mid-market CIO with US Silica, and as Jason said, pandemic included. So, it's really a privilege to get to talk to you about this. It's been interesting first year, especially as we think about the pandemic that I got to experience. But I'm going to share a lot of my experiences as a previous CIO and how those helped me be successful in what we're doing today at US Silica. So let me talk a little bit first about US Silica and that experience. So gotta get all the technology working here first. So US Silica is a 120-year-old global industrial minerals and logistics company. We have core competencies in mining and processing, logistics and material sciences, which enable us to deliver effectively and efficiently over 1,500 products to our customers. So we really break our business down into two core segments, oil and gas and industrials. And inside each one of them, we have two business units. In oil and gas, we have the mining and processing of frac sand used for drilling for oil. And we have what we call sandbox logistics, which is the last mile delivery arm of that sand to the well site. On our industrial side, we break it down into something called specialty minerals, which is where we produce sand-related products that are used to create other products, like glass and paints, construction materials, cat litter even. And then we have performance materials, which is where we produce product that is used by the end consumer. We do a lot of filtration products for the manufacturing of beer and wine, something I'm sure we've all probably drank a little bit more of during this pandemic. Construction materials, roof coatings, and filtration for your pool even are all things that we produce out of our performance materials group. So you can imagine that the challenges of 4 business units, each doing some very distinct things, operating within one company. We're headquartered in Katy, Texas. We have mining and manufacturing operations throughout the US and sales and distribution globally. So the CIO role that I'm in today became available when the company moved its headquarters from Maryland to Texas. And it moved from Maryland to Texas in an effort to be closer to the bulk of its customer base being in the oil and gas industry. And that was the driver for the move. Well, not all of its employees position came open. And as the company was looking for a new CIO and eventually got to me, they realized we want to find and we're ready for something different. So they wanted to find someone who had a lot of experience with different size organizations that could really help drive a business technology transformation. As I said, we have 4 business units. Even though we're a 120-year-old company, we're changing constantly. We've grown through acquisition. The Sandbox Logistics Group is really only a 4-year-old organization that the company acquired back in 2017. So there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of things going on. That's how I ended up into my role here at US Silica. So I mentioned they wanted that experienced CIO. So let me tell you a little bit about my experiences so you can understand the context of where I'm going to come from as I talk about some of the things that have gone on during this first year for me at US Silica. So I've held 3 positions as CIO, 3 different companies, the Global Partners, Consulting, and SGR Energy. In addition, I've also served as interim or fractional CIO for another 3 companies. Now, Global Partners gave me that big public company experience. Dramatic transformation, going from a $6 billion company to a $20 billion company in 4 years, completely transforming who we were as a company and every aspect about it. SGR Energy was that small startup company, operated globally, grew very quickly through acquisition and our own construction and market expansion. And then MRE was an opportunity to serve as a CIO internally, as well as run my own advisory practice. So not only running IT, but I also had my own P&L. And within that is where I and my team served as interim or fractional CIO and provided other advisory services. So we got to see a really broad spectrum of companies in that aspect. But I think if you take these three core companies as CIO, leveraging a lot of that experience and the things I did there, both good and bad, are what drove how we were able to operate here now at US Silica. Excuse me. So let's talk about that experience. Now, as you can see, I've got some gray hair where I do have hair, less hair than I would like. That's because I've been around doing this for over 20 years. I've served as CIO, technology leader, a strategic advisor for companies in all different industries, from oil and gas, utilities, food and beverage, tourism and retail, and technology and manufacturing as well. And it's been an interesting ride, and there's a lot that I've learned along the way. You know, I've learned that being able to provide value and what I refer to as the other side of the firewall, meaning outside our comfort zone for as IT leaders, is critical for our success and the company's success. We have to understand how our company's cash register works. How do we make money? How do we engage with our customer? That the need for a fluid strategy and plan is critical. That companies big and small are experiencing and facing the same challenges, just on a different scale. And that the value and importance of change leadership and having a change leadership mindset are also important. And then our people. We can't ever take away how important our people are. And in that 20 plus years, a lot has changed as well. You know, technology is disrupting business faster than ever before. Our new normal of this constant change. I don't believe there's any more this true concept of best practices. I think the technology is enabling us to venture into new territories, which means what is the best practice for something new? So I like to say we want to work on smart practices, leveraging our experience and the lessons learned to create the right practices for wherever our company and our organization is going today. So these are all things that have happened along my way in my experience, and they've all impacted my new role as CIO in this first year at US Silica. You know, my plan was to leverage those experiences to really help me hit the ground running and really be successful. Be able to get some immediate positive wins for the organization. And as I was thinking about that, I'm starting to build my plan now for what things were going to be like. As I started my new role, I realized and recognized that you can leverage those experiences, but every company is different. We've got different industry, different people, different needs, different culture, different size and scope. So you just can't expect to do what you did before all over again and hope for these positive results. You're in a different environment. The needs are different. So you've got to leverage those experiences, both good and bad, learn from your lessons and apply them appropriately in your new role. Create those smart practices. Not just try and repeat what you did before. You're not going to be successful doing that. So let's talk about a number of those items today related to my experiences and how those were impacted positively or negatively, the different things that I went through here in this first year. So let's start with what I always refer to as my most important component. Team. You know, they may have hired me as the new CIO, but nothing's going to get done without your people, without the right people on that bus and having those great people. And it's really critical that you do have the right people on the bus to help go forward with whatever those company's goals and objectives are. What got the company to where it is with your team may not be what the company needs going forward. And I think I couldn't have learned that, how important that was from my time at Global Partners when we were going through that dramatic transformation. We went in 4 years from 6 billion to 20 billion. We were a totally different company, where we operated, the products we sold, the type of business we were in. And it was harder than it had to be. We did not have all the right people on that bus. And we had to literally, I was changing the wheels on that bus as we went. It made things take longer. It was slower. It made things, again, harder than it had to be. And I said I never wanted to be in that position again. When I had taken over at Global, I had already known a lot of the teams. I'd worked with them previously as a consultant. So that ability to, or need of thought that I needed to change wasn't there. I didn't do the right things in assessing the team and making some immediate changes to enable us to achieve the goals and objectives. So as I said, I was literally changing the tires on that bus as we went. Something I wasn't going to allow to have happen when I started at US Silica. So coming into US Silica, I had set out to assess my team and their capabilities very, very quickly and make whatever changes needed to happen immediately, so we didn't get into that same situation of trying to change the tires on the bus while we're moving down the road. I'm happy to say we had a really good team. I was blessed with a great group of experienced folks in a good position to do what we needed to do. The things that needed to change were a little bit of restructuring of how the organization was set up within IT and focusing more on the people's mindset about what we were going to be doing. One of the examples, and I'll talk a little bit more about it as we move forward, is moving from a traditional off-the-shelf software type of company to actually producing and putting out products for our end users. And that was something, a real big mind shift that what needed to happen and is continuing to happen now with my team. So the lesson learned there is assess your people, do it quickly as you're coming in, making sure you've got the right people for where you want to go. Just because they were right and the great people to get you there doesn't mean they're the right people for where you need to go. You may need to train them. You may need to make some changes from a restructuring, and you may need to replace some people. But do it early, do it quickly. Don't try to do it on the fly. The second part was about relationships. And coming in, you've got to have the right relationships throughout your organization. You've got to have right relationships with your vendors and your peers, and maybe even with some of your competitors. Knowing this, before I even started, I built what I call a stakeholder power map. And this was my chart, kind of looks like a magic quadrant, that will help me focus my attentions on the right people at the right times and have a game plan as opposed to flying by the seat of my pants and how to work with the different people inside the organization. I've got a CEO, CFO, COO, Chief Human Resource Officer. I've got 4 business unit presidents with their own org structure of CFOs and operating. I had a lot going on and a lot of people to quickly build relationships with. I needed to have a game plan. So doing that really, really helped. It's something I started building during the interview process. It's something that was tweaked and refined once I was hired and continues to be refined today, a year after the fact, that I still work with and use over and over again to make sure I'm spending the right time and the right focus with the right people throughout our organization to strengthen those relationships and build a good team across both up and down and sideways inside our organization. You also have to strengthen those relationships with your vendors. For any of you who know me, you know I'm a big proponent on having a solid, strong vendor management plan. We can't do it all ourselves. We know we have to leverage our vendor community. So doing that and having a plan to do that, strengthening those relationships is going to pay off many times over in the end. I built a program when I was at Global called the Strategic Partner Program. It's returned tens of millions of dollars year over year in benefits, and it's something I've taken with me at every single company, something I've spoken about and shared ideas on with a number of people over the years. Bringing that to US Silica was, again, another key thing to help us get where we needed to go. And it's really about getting rid of the negative event-driven relationship we typically have with our vendors and creating a more positive win-win relationship. Additionally, there's building the relationships with your CIO peers. Why reinvent the wheel? Why do everything all over again? Learn from each other's successes and failures. So I've built that strong network, especially when I was first CIO, going, what am I doing here? How do I figure this out? So let's lean on other people who've been there and done that. I've maintained that network for all these years, continue to strengthen and grow it. And when I started at US Silica, I reached back out to that network and said, hey, starting a new job, yeah, I know I've been here before, but what advice can you give me? What would you do? How would you approach this? There's always something to learn. As long as we remember we don't know it all and there's always new things to learn, I think it'll help you be successful. I leveraged my CIO network of peers to do that. So don't ever underestimate the value of the network. Moving on, you've got to have a strong strategy. You need to develop this fairly quickly. It's got to be connected to the corporate goals and objectives. And I find too often CIOs come into their new organization, think they know it, leveraging past experiences of what I did before, and kind of start bringing that together without taking the time to understand their new organization. Even though, because they are pressured, they've got to do this quickly. And I agree, you've got to put this together pretty early on. But you've got to take the time to what I'd call decode the corporate strategy. Hopefully your organization provides that a lot clearer. You don't have to be Neo and step into the matrix and try to figure it all out and ultimately see things clearly. I've been lucky enough at many organizations to have that very clearly laid out. Had some great CEOs. US Silica was no different. We're very clear in what those corporate goals and objectives are. So that really helped in building out the strategy. But the strategy's got to be fluid. Today, change is the new normal. Strategy's got to remain fluid to respond to what those companies may face. This pandemic is a perfect example. And we've got to look to where we want to be when we grow up and work our way backward. We can't just start saying, I'm going to do this 3 years out and start moving that way. We've got to understand what it is, work our way backwards little by little so that we can shift and pivot as we need to be. So I took my new team and we went through an 8-step process, very rigorous, ground up, blank sheet of paper, didn't care about the old strategy, didn't want to comment whether it was good or bad, agreed with it or disagreed with, and said, let's start and build it. It was also a way to build relationship and rapport with my new team, getting them involved, getting them engaged, making them feel ownership in all of this to help push us forward. And we went through and built that strategy, connected to the goals and objectives, and it really was a ground up process. And I think it helped us in the communication throughout the organization about how IT is and will continue to create value for the company going forward in achieving its goals and objectives. So, my lesson learned on the strategy side is really get there quickly. Don't leave it to the end, but also focus and make sure it is connected to those corporate goals and objectives. You don't know what they are, don't use that as an excuse. Go find out, go ask the questions, but don't use not knowing as a reason for not doing something. We've got to figure that out and figure it out quickly. The next is about IT financial management. Never underestimate the value of knowing where the finances of IT are. We've got to have a good, strong area. There is no easy button. This involves work. I don't think I ever realized this more than when I took over my first CIO role, inherited $100+ million budget, 6 months through the year, that a budget that's running 10+% over budget and figuring out how to get a handle on it. I had never handled a budget this big before. I went out, hired a friend of mine who was a retired CFO and brought him in as my IT finance director. Together, we started and did a zero-based budget right there, ground up, figured everything out, really had a good understanding of what we were doing, was able to reduce our run budget by 15%, reinvested that into growth and transformational opportunities and the development of our team. Did the exact same thing starting in at US Silica. Quickly got a handle on what my budget was, so now I knew how to manage it. I'd love a $100 million budget again. That's not the case today, but getting a handle on it is, whatever the dollar amount is really important, how you are a good steward of those resources. And then coming into 2020 was doing that zero-based budget all over again. It really gives you the ability to understand your numbers and how you want to effectively manage those going forward. If you don't know where you're spending the dollars, how you're spending the dollars, I don't believe you can effectively manage those. And doing that early on really gave me credibility in the organization. Excuse me. When we went through the tough times that everyone's going, the market downturn and the pandemic, to really have a good handle, to know where I had to make cuts, be able to have an intelligent conversation with the rest of the executive team on that very topic. So moving that forward to what else we need to do is have a game plan. I played football in college, so having that pre-game plan, knowing what we want to do for the game as a whole, knowing what we're going to do in different situations, whether it's third and short or third and long, it's just ingrained in me. It's what I've done all my life in playing sports. So I believe you have to do the same thing as a CIO and not fly by the seat of your pants as you're going. So one of the things that I've always done, and I really reinforce that in the role of the CIO, and not just from my football days, was about M&A. I built something called the M&A Playbook. It was featured in Computer World in an article called Get in the M&A Game. And it was about the football. It was about the game plan, how having a plan that helped add real value, sped up our ability to do due diligence and do the implementation of an M&A, of an acquisition. Coming to US Silica, I believed in that same thing. So we're building, not only did I have a game plan about building relationships, as I said earlier, and assessing my team, but for developing the technology strategy, about vendor management, about developing my people, managing IT finances, and many others. So you've got the big game plan for the whole, but then you have smaller plans along the way to manage each and everything that you're going to come up with. So my advice is don't underestimate the value of having this game plan. It's well worth the time and effort. If it wasn't for these, you think about football just started. You see all these NFL coaches with those big color-coded plans, multi-sided, they're using to call the plays. If it wasn't worth it and valuable to have those games, why would they be doing it? We need to think more like that and have that same game plan. It served me well over my career. So those were some things that I had as experiences that I was able to leverage here for the new organization. But as most people come in as a new CIO, you've got challenges. You've got to figure out how to overcome them. You're probably challenged with some thing you learned in the interview process is, hey, we've got this project that's a problem, this thing that's a problem, and I need you to fix it yesterday. It's the first thing they're asking you to do. I was no different. Coming into US Silica, I had that similar thing. Happy to say I knew about it during the interview process. I knew about this mobile application related to our sandbox division that was trying to be pushed out. It was many, many, many months behind. And I needed to fix that quickly. We had invested a lot of money and needed to get that out the door. Now, I thought I knew a lot about it. Coming in and getting my feet wet with it, realized there was a lot more to it than what had been explained, or what was the perception of the problems. They were problems with the vendor. They were problems internally. They were problems with the stakeholders. There was an opportunity. People had lost sight of what we were trying to do, why we were trying to deliver this application, and what we really were going to get as a result. So this was a huge opportunity to take things back over quickly, earn some street cred, if you will, as a CIO throughout the organization with my team and with those stakeholders by delivering something very quickly. So rolling the sleeves up, a lot of working sessions. We were able to, late nights, we were able to pull together and deliver the MVP and a plan for the future releases by mid to late September. I started the beginning of August. So in a month and a half, almost 2 months, we were able to roll that out successfully to 800 plus drivers across the US. And that was that big challenge. And you've got to expect these coming into your CIO role, that there's going to be this type of initiative and need to do something with it. And of course, we've got the global pandemic. So Jason, if you'd quick throw up that poll for me. I'm curious how you experienced this. Was your organization well prepared or not so? How well did you perform? If you wouldn't mind, on a scale of 1 to 5, where you were in that. Let's see. So we're getting results all over the board. About a third in the well prepared, but a little over 60% between items 3 and 4. So pretty good. Most of us were not down at the bottom. So that's great news. Jason, can you share that with everybody? So we were no different. We had this happen just like everybody else, and now suddenly trying to figure out what's going on. How well was your business continuity plan going to work? For me, this was a scary situation. This really comes 6 months, 7 months after starting. We haven't tested this yet. That wasn't my focus. You heard about the things I was focused on right away, and the challenge, the problem project that I came into that had to address. So my fingers were crossed. I was holding my breath, hoping this was going to work. I was part of our emergency management incident response team, working through what we were going to do as a company. We put in safety measures across all our plants to enable those to continue to function. And then we had to figure out how to get everybody working remotely so that so that we could successfully work safely amidst this pandemic and allow people to do what they needed to do for their families. So happy to say it worked well. We had an 850% increase in usage across our IT infrastructure from a remote perspective, and knock on wood, overall went well and still moving today. We did have one item with our dispatch group, which is part of Sandbox that was acquired. We had 30 folks working in a room with a lot of shared equipment. They weren't prepared to go home. They had one phone number to come in, they shared computers, and suddenly they had to work remotely and had no way to deal with the phone. They lived on the phone all day. Happy to say that vendor program, those relationships, excuse me, were able to be leveraged to implement a UCaaS system in, in 3 days. That enabled us to do what we needed to do and not skip a beat with our business. It's worked so well that we're actually going to use that same system now when we come back to the office, whenever that's going to be, to continue doing it, because it's got more capabilities than we had before. So, pandemic was challenging to everyone, but we've got to deal with it and work to figure out how to make sure our people are safe. So that was that other mix, that little monkey wrench that got thrown into that first year. Certainly not what we expected. So as we close up and get ready for the rest of our sessions here, let's talk about some parting advice. You've got to leverage your experiences and learn from them, both the good and the bad. Just because it worked at one place doesn't mean it's going to work again here at this company. Remember, everybody's different. You're not Superman. You can't do everything all the time. So you've got to extract value from your vendors community and have a good vendor management plan. You've got to develop your people and build strong teams, develop good relationships inside and outside your organization, and build a solid game plan and use your experience that you have to create variations in that plan for those different situations. I look at it as it's really time to be ambitious, be excellent, or you're going to be gone. The opportunities here are plentiful, but if you're not being ambitious, leveraging those experiences, I think your tenure is going to be short-lived. And hopefully I've done the right things to stay relevant and do what I need to do at my organization. I always love to share my books. I'm a big reader. These are just a few of my favorites that really helped me along the way throughout my career journey. So hopefully I'll just share those with you. And I know we want to jump to some Q&A. So with that, I'm going to say thank you for your time. Appreciate you getting to listen to me today. Looking forward to answering your questions and staying connected with you throughout the rest of the event. So Jason, I'll turn it over to you for any questions.
Yes, indeed, and we have quite a few. So thank you all for contributing here, and thank you very much for Ken for that insight. So let's get through some of this important Q&A. Starting first and foremost with Mr. Isaac Sakalik. Good seeing you, Ken. On your game plan regarding COVID, the new normal, etc., how far out are you planning? What's bumped up in priority, and did you drop any priorities? Also, how are you developing your people differently with remote working?
I knew Isaac. How did I know Isaac was going to be first? Thank you, Isaac. I always appreciate your support. Obviously for the game planning, there's a lot of the core things that I believe in planning as early on as possible in what you're going to do. The part about how we were developing strategy, the core of what we're doing to develop our people, things around M&A. Those are things we can do very early. Obviously, I couldn't plan for this. I didn't plan for this pandemic. It kind of got hit. So we hoped that our current business continuity plan was going to be sufficient. It obviously was for core technology, but what we were going to do was very different. We hadn't thought about social distancing and so many people working remotely and how that changed the work environment. So that incident response team was tasked with being able to go through that and build that game plan for it and continuing to revise it as new information was coming in. It was very fluid. We were learning a lot, as all of you were, about the pandemic and what that meant and what was safe and what wasn't, and what the rules were going to be in this state or that state, or even varying by county, and how did you take care of your people appropriately, not just from a safety perspective, but having the consideration for them and their families and what that meant for childcare and their working conditions. So it had to remain very, very fluid. So I think there's part of those game plans that you can plan a little bit more up front for what you know going in that are a little bit more static, and then things that are more dynamic, you've got to have a way of adjusting on the fly. It's like at a football game. The coaches go and the team go back in at the halftime, reassess. well, this running play wasn't working. We need to try this way, or we got to take advantage of, this guy got hurt and they put a new cornerback in. We're going to run our pass plays to that side. You've got to be able to do the same things as an IT leader and continuing to think about those game plans. As it relates to your people, that's a challenging one. It's been hard for everyone. I've really focused on how to keep my people motivated throughout all of this and engaged and figuring out ways to collaborate. We've experimented with tools. We've experimented with different fun activities, from how do we do virtual happy hours to fun t-shirt days, to keep people engaged and working differently. How do we encourage relationship building outside of your own team as ways to go ahead and keep people engaged and working for the organization, learning about the business. That's been things that we've done that have helped us quite a bit. As we've all been remote, not being able to be there in the office. So hopefully that answered your questions.
Fantastic. Another one for you here from Leo Ostrowski. How often do you assess your team, the technical skills and soft skills? And is this a team effort among you and your direct reports? If you can explain this process, and is it ad hoc or somewhat methodical?
Methodical. So coming into the organization, it was a plan. It was me driving it. There was definitely a method to my madness around it. It was working with all my direct reports, two layers down as individuals, and then team meetings or department meetings within IT for me to get to better know everybody. It wasn't checking on everybody's certifications. From that, really getting to know and hear about where their experiences were. I believe we can teach and learn the technologies that are needed, because technology is changing so fast. I wanted people with the right mindset, with the right ways of thinking, the right processes, the right approaches that were going to be able to grow in our organization, understand our business, and be able to help move things forward. So that was the first part, the most important part around what I was doing from an assessment for our team. The part on the technical side was knowing we were going down that road with the mobile application, knowing what we were going to do more, and I did mention this earlier, more from a cloud perspective, doing more from a data and analytics perspective. So there was, yes, looking at some people and who had some experience and background in that, who was trainable and who wasn't. So I did that first year assessment. Going forward, I've only been here now exactly just about 13 months. The plan will be to continue on assessing our team. My direct reports will be assessing their team, providing that to me. I'll be providing assessments, doing assessments on my direct reports, not diving that far deep into the organization on an ongoing basis. We do it formally twice a year, not meaning from a performance review, from an actual taking a look at our people and how they're performing, or how they're doing, what they're doing, where do we need to continue to develop them based on what our needs are going. So if we continue to have our game plans, what's happening, what's going, what's our strategy look like, that is tools that we use to be able to assess our people, to make sure those mindsets are still there, but to make sure that the technical skills that are needed for where we want to go, we have in-house, or do we need to elevate them through training and education, or do we need to go out and hire some more people to fill those roles? So ask me that question again 6 months from now, after I've had the opportunity to do the next assessment, and I'll be able to answer.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Question here from Stephanie Cortez. How do you balance making quick, effective changes while also navigating and learning the new culture?
It's a great question, because you gotta balance it. You can't go too quick, because you don't know enough of the culture and the people, and you might step on some toes too early, and that's going to really set you back. But at the same time, you've got to make some changes. You've got to make some quick wins to earn that credibility. I look to where the money is. Go for what's going to provide the biggest bang for the buck around that. And also in the beginning, there's a part of, you got to make a mark. So there's an opportunity for you. I mentioned that part about getting the street cred. I think that's really important. If you're too laid back and just taking it all in and trying to learn and not executing on anything, I think you're going to hurt yourself in the long run. So being able to look at where the money is, follow that money flow, look at your corporate goals and objectives. What's going to have the biggest impact? That's where you want to go in something that you can deliver on very quickly. You've got to keep learning at the same time. So we end up with lots of parallel tracks going on simultaneously that you've got to do to be successful. You know, 1 minute you've got one hat on, next minute you've got the next hat on. That's just kind of the role of the CIO and needing to be able to do that. So you do have to tread carefully as you're learning the culture, but you've also got to make your mark and follow the money.
Brilliant. Still got some time left and a few more questions to get through here. Another one from Leo Ostrovsky. What specific things have you done to retool the IT department's skills for the cloud, containerization, software as a service, automation, and security?
Yeah. So I'll touch on a couple of those. First was automation. I believe it's a huge opportunity on so many levels throughout our organization. So I've provided some tools for the team to do some self-study and getting more up to speed on what technologies are out there today, particularly in the RPA space. Around that, I brought 2 different vendors in that I've known and said I want to work with a POC, putting a team together to start to play around and use it as a, you know, no pun intended, create our sandbox for us to go play in that. And that's one way I've been working on retooling there within the automation idea for things. In the security side, you know, we've been really pushing hard on the security and educating on security across the organization. Again, similarly, bringing in various vendors back to those relationships where you can get some folks to come in, not to sell you the shiny box off the shelf, but to come in and help understand your business and what you need and use it as a learning environment, almost a sandbox innovation playground, has really been something that I've tried to do on automation, on the security side, and with some of the opportunities within the cloud as we move. Now, we were already pretty well moved towards a full cloud, and I say infrastructure service, platform as a service, software are about 75, 80% there. We have very little physical footprint in our environment when I got there. So it's just really been taking that and moving it the rest of the way where it makes sense, and taking better advantage of what we were already doing. But really, again, it's about those sandboxes or those play opportunities to educate, opportunity to self-educate by giving the resources to the team, leveraging the relationships with the various vendors to make them want to come in and help get your team stronger, not just sell you the shiny box off the shelf. And my vendor management programs in the past have enabled that to be successful today.
Brilliant. And we've got time for one more here. Shamio Chatterjee asks, can you please share your thoughts on the role of the CIO with the proverbial seat on the table?
I think, we've been talking about that forever. What do you got to do to have the seat at the table? Should the CIO have the seat at the table? I think now more than ever, they need to be. And I think companies that aren't putting the CIO or CTO or whatever, chief digital, whatever the title wants to be, there are making a mistake. So much of what's happening, what we're doing with our products, with how do we run our operations, how do we engage with our customers, how do we work with our suppliers and the supply chain, are all driven so much and dependent on technology. The opportunity to outpace your competition and gain real competitive advantage really lies in the technology today. But most organizations are not yet giving the CIO that seat at the table. And part of that is our fault. We're not always prepared. We grew up as technologists. So maybe we don't fully understand the numbers of the business. We're not able to have that proper communication and conversation. We're not able to do something I mentioned very early on in my presentation today, is step out of our comfort zone and operate on the other side of the firewall. We mostly grew up inside the firewall, inside working behind the scenes there, making sure servers and emails and technology was up and running. We didn't get out in the field. We didn't engage with the customers, and that's the opportunity. And for those of us that are willing to step outside of our comfort zone to the other side of the firewall, I think we'll be able to have that seat at the table. I do think it's critically important for companies to leverage technology leaders in those types of roles, giving them that proverbial seat at the table. I think companies are foolish for not putting more IT leadership, both from a CIO and a CISO on their boards. It is a tremendous opportunity that we as technologists need to do a better job in taking advantage of and creating the opportunity for us. We've got to get that street cred within our organization before you're going to be given that opportunity. It's just the nature of the beast. The CFO, unfortunately, doesn't have to do that, but the CIO does. And that's through the years of history of where we didn't do it. So I think now more than ever is the time to take advantage of that. That's my point about be ambitious, be excellent, or you're going to be gone.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Ken. Very fantastic opening session of this forum. Great way to kick things off. Thank you all of you for your contribution with the Q&As as well. And for those whose questions we weren't able to get to, Dan and Rick, I believe, please do feel free to find Ken on LinkedIn and reach out. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to lend a helping hand with those questions you have there. That sees the end of the opening keynotes. We are now going to reassess and get ready for the roundtable discussion that is going to be coming up next. All around is your IT roadmap, business driven or vendor dictated. So for those who have already signed up for that session, we'll be seeing you soon. For everybody else, we look forward to seeing you at the additional sessions throughout the course of today and the rest of the week. I hope everyone could just join me in a virtual round of applause for Ken Piddington with a fantastic keynote. So thank you very much, Ken.
Thank
Brilliant.
you. Appreciate it.
Excellent, guys. Thank you so much. And we'll be seeing you throughout the course of the week. Cheers.